So back a few years ago, in the fitness space online, there was a lot of talk about protein. Protein was basically the main focus, and that was my first introduction to any dieting advice in fitness. Was get 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight to support muscle growth. And so because that was basically the #1 thing that I heard all of the time, that unfortunately made me believe that protein is basically the only important thing to muscle growth, to getting stronger, to getting a good physique. Now, my father was the one that taught me the basics of working out when I first started and got me into working out through some weights that he used to own, some benches that I used to own that we had in a little home gym, right? And he would tell me that the big thing when he was lifting and he was doing all that, he was building his physique, was carbohydrates. And so he and his lifting partners would focus on carbohydrates more than protein. And I thought, well, that's pretty strange. Like, I know what carbs are, obviously, but I don't know why they're important. And I didn't really think that much about it. Fast forward to today, and I'm learning about becoming a personal trainer in the gym. I'm learning more about dieting. And also I'm learning some things on my own as I try to tackle some certain obstacles and roadblocks on my journey to getting my dream physique. Turns out that carbs are way more important than most people think. Carbohydrates, which are one of the big 3 macronutrients, proteins, carbs, and fats, have a very interesting role in the body. What role is that? It's kind of like the role that gasoline plays in a car. It is that important. The human body, under normal conditions, gets its energy from carbohydrates. I'm going to spare you a lot of the science stuff because it really genuinely doesn't really matter if you know it or not, but basically, when you consume carbohydrates, it has the option to go into 2 forms, right? Glycogen or fat. Glycogen is normally stored in your muscle, and it's stored there for future use as fuel. Fat is also for future use of fuel because your body's, looking out for you. It wants fuel, but fat is used under different conditions than working out, and it also is less aesthetically pleasing, as we all know. Your body's main source of usable energy during exercise is something called ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. Although you're not going to have to remember that name, don't worry. Just remember it's ATP, right? Your body actually already has some ATP in it. The problem is that when you exercise, that stuff gets used up almost immediately. And so what does your body have to do? It has to make more, and it can make more ATP from a couple of sources. Now, what your body creates ATP from depends on the duration of the exercise. If it's extremely short, like kind of explosive, like plyometric movements or something like that, like box jumps, for example, then it's going to use the creatine phosphate system. If it's between 10 seconds and 90 seconds, which is what we're going to be talking about, that's like traditional weight training, then it's going to use glycogen to create more ATP. And if it's longer than 90 seconds, then it's going to start using oxygen to create more ATP. Now, you might have heard that we need 1 to 3 minutes of rest between sets of an exercise in order to properly rest. Why do you think that is? It's because at the 3-minute mark is when your ATP is basically almost 100% fully regenerated. And so the time between sets is to give your body time to regenerate some more ATP so that you can expend more energy during your next set. This is why if you were to try and go into another set directly after a really hard set, you wouldn't be able to push as strong. It's not that your muscles have physically become weaker, it's because you haven't regenerated the fuel required to go into that lift. So what I'm basically trying to say is that glycogen is extremely important. And glycogen is a product of carbohydrates that enter your body. Why do you think so many more professional lifters have some sort of like snack right before their workout that doesn't have any protein in it at all, right? For example, they don't have like a protein bar, they have like a banana or like Rice Krispie, right? It's because that is carbs for the workout. That is glycogen in their muscles for the workout. Or why do you think so many of them have, it's called like intra-workout. It's basically in the middle of the workout, you have some sort of drink with sugar or you have a snack with carbs in it that puts more glycogen into your muscles and lets you have better endurance throughout the workout. Here's a quick story. At one point in my lifter journey, I really wanted to bulk, but I had hit the plateau of all plateaus, just like the mother of all plateaus, and I could not gain any weight no matter what, and I couldn't figure out why. I was getting enough calories every single day, like 4,000 calories every single day. I was eating until I was stuffed. Like I literally didn't know why I wasn't gaining any weight at all. And then one day I was doing leg day, unfortunately, and I just kind of like, I was thinking about this problem. I was ruminating about this issue, and I decided to pull out my diet tracker app and go and check the macros tab to actually see on average how many macronutrients I was consuming. And it turns out that I was consuming tons of protein, almost like 50% over my protein goal every single day. But I was hardly ever hitting 50%, just half of my carbohydrate goal every single day. That let me know that I needed to include a little bit more carbs on my plate and a little bit less protein. This is the problem that you run into when you prioritize protein too much. You've got like tunnel vision, like how much protein can I get in? Protein, protein, protein. You're just obsessing over protein compared to everything else, right? It's not that simple. Your body's a very complex machine and it's designed to have a certain amount of all nutrients. Do you remember the creatine phosphate system that we spoke about earlier? That's the first source of ATP when it's trying to regenerate, and it typically kicks in like 1 to 3 seconds, right? So if you're doing some sort of explosive movements like jumping lunges or something like that, burpees, you know, whatever, box jumps or some other explosive movement, that is when that kicks in. A lot of people take creatine as a supplement. It's like the most popular fitness supplement maybe ever, in order to increase the size of their creatine phosphate stores in their muscles to enhance the creatine phosphate system, right? Imagine how many people take creatine. It's so common. You can go up to like anybody and they'll tell you if they're in the gym that they tried creatine at one point. But the system of glycogen is the main one that's used during your standard set of resistance training, right? Because a bench press set doesn't really last between 1 to 3 seconds. It normally lasts between like 10 to 30 seconds. Glycogen is the main thing used in that process. But how many people are thinking about glycogen compared to creatine? A lot of people like to talk about the strength benefits of creatine, which fair enough, right? When you take creatine, it makes you stronger in the short term. It gives you kind of like a temporary boost in strength. And then that snowballs into long-term strength as you can push yourself harder and harder in the gym. But how many people are talking about the strength benefits of having just a ton of carbs in your body? When I finish a huge meal or I just have a ton of carbs in my system before a workout, I feel amazing. I feel like I have more energy. I am stronger. I could hit PRs that I otherwise couldn't. Carbs are just like so good. Glycogen is just so good for having an amazing workout. It's also underrated the role that carbohydrates play in weight gain or weight loss. As I mentioned before, when I included more carbs in my diet, I was able to gain weight when I otherwise couldn't, and my protein was good. And not eating more carbs, but if you pay attention to and limit your carbs when you're trying to lose weight, then that can be the biggest factor in losing fat and getting leaner. By the way, if you are serious about getting an aesthetic physique and you are willing to invest in yourself, the top link in the description is my full program. That is basically all of my years and years of lifter knowledge put into a single course. It's very detailed, it's very value packed. It's more than I could put in a single YouTube video. And I share a lot of stuff there that I don't talk about on here, and it'll really just help you to achieve your goals. I would appreciate if you would just pause the video right now, go click the link, and then just watch the attached video to see if it's for you, because if it is for you and you don't check it out, then you are missing out. And if it just doesn't seem like it's the right time for you, like you can't afford it or whatever, I completely understand. I'm always going to keep making videos on this YouTube channel for free, so you can just close that tab and come straight back to this video. Thank you. So how can you use your new knowledge of this magical macronutrient in an age where protein is the most prioritized nutrient of all? Well, first of all, make sure that you get good carbs before every single workout. If I try to eat a lot of carbohydrate dense meals throughout the day, but let's say you haven't been able to get in a lot of carbs, that's perfectly fine. Something like 2 tablespoons of honey right before your workout can kick in within like 15 minutes and put glycogen in your muscles. Like, simple carbs like that are very effective at kicking in very quickly. In the middle of your workout, something good to have is some sort of intra-workout. That could be something like a Gatorade, which has electrolytes as well as some sugars. It could be some sort of snack, like a Rice Krispie or whatever. It doesn't matter exactly what it is, but consuming some sort of carbohydrate about halfway through your workout will let you also be stronger during like the last half of your workout, whereas normally, you kind of get more tired after about 50% of your workout and you can't push as strong in the later exercises. In general, you also want to be getting adequate carbohydrates during the day. So a good recommendation for athletes like us is 6 grams per kilogram of body weight. And also, this is something else you should know, there is a difference between carbohydrates. Stuff like honey or fruit are what's called simple carbs, which basically means it's super easy for your body to break them down, and so your blood sugar is going to spike. But that's not really good. Simple carbs and other the easy to break down sugars are kind of what lead to like modern obesity and diabetes and stuff like that. So something that I like to go for are complex carbs. They're still carbohydrates, right? But nature has made them so it's harder for your body to break down. And when it's harder for your body to break down, that leads to a more gradual release of energy over the long term, as opposed to a quick spike and then a crash. So with this new knowledge, you can kind of try some fun things, right? You can eat mostly complex carbs throughout the day, and then maybe like right before your workout, as I mentioned, take some sort of like simple carb, simple sugar, or refined sugar, which are really easy to break down, and then kind of like spike your energy. Or let's say you want to cut, but you find it really hard and it's very difficult for you to resist binging a ton of sugary foods. Maybe you structure your meals so that you have plenty of complex carbohydrates throughout the day that provide you with steady energy, instead of having low blood sugar and then wanting to binge on like simple or refined sugars. What this does, by the way, is when you eat complex carbs, it's more likely to go into glycogen. It's more likely to go into, be used properly. Whereas if you eat simple carbs or refined carbs, which get processed very, very quickly, it's more likely for your body to throw a lot of that into fat because it doesn't know what to do with the massive amount of carbs that were just processed because it spikes so quick. Basically, my point is you should be paying attention to carbohydrates in your diet because it's very, very, very important. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then you should subscribe because I'm putting out a lot of videos like this. I am obsessed with getting like my dream physique and aesthetic physique, and I'm teaching you guys along the way as I learn. Thank you. Go watch this video.